This video is everything you need to know to assemble the right people that you'll need to buy your home. So you've made it through the first video, you've mentally prepared, you've looked at your finances, you've gotten to the point where you're saying, yes, I can afford to buy a home in Kansas City in 2023. So what are the next steps? Okay, you've thought through those 3 questions that I told you to ask yourself. You've done your research in the different parts of the KC metro area, and now you're getting to the point where you're ready to go. Okay, so what next? Okay, so next thing you need to do is you need to build your team. You need to build your team. So first thing that you need to do is you need to know, before you even build your team, what every single person on the team does. Now, if you played sports growing up, or if you were around sports, you know that every single team player has a different role, right? The quarterback has a certain role if you're talking about football. The wide receiver has a certain role. The offensive lineman has a certain role. The defensive back has a certain role. And it's the same way. Everybody on your team will have a particular role that they need to play for you to successfully buy your home. So here's a list of people that you're gonna need to successfully buy your home in Kansas City in 2023. So you'll need a realtor, you'll need a lender, you'll need an inspector, you'll have a title company, an insurance agent. Let me give you a quick run through of what each person on the team does. So the lender handles broadly the money aspect of the house, everything that has to do with financing. So most people don't have an extra $250,000 sitting around in their closet. If you do, great, then you can buy a house with cash and you don't need a lender. Maybe you have a huge inheritance fund and you can buy a house cash, then you don't need a lender. But the lender handles the entire money aspect of the home. Okay, the realtor handles the house and the area aspect. So as a realtor myself, what I do is I help people find the home that they want. I help them negotiate an offer that is acceptable to the seller, and then I guide them through the process of buying the home, okay? So the realtor handles the house aspect. The inspector, you're not gonna need to hire an inspector right now. The inspector reveals things that you may not have known about the house your first time walking through. The title company transfers the property into your name, and the insurance agent makes sure that your house is insured. That's what everybody on the team does. So if you have a question about how much is my monthly payment going to be? Well, if you ask me as a realtor, I will say, ask your lender, because the lender is the one who handles the money aspect, right? I know a little bit about interest rates. I try to keep current on these things because that's part of my job, but I'm more on the house aspect. Okay, now if you have a question about how old this roof is, or if you have a question about the area, then ask your realtor. If you have a question about a certain area or a location or a school district, then ask your realtor. Now, if you don't have a realtor yet, then I would love to serve as your realtor. I love working with first-time home buyers or any type of home buyer. My phone number is 626-226-6611. Feel free to call or text me. If you like these videos, if you find them informative, this is one of the things I pride myself on, is being a good communicator, a good teacher, somebody who's patient with somebody who's looking through the first-time home buying process. So if you are looking for a realtor in the KC metro area, either on the Kansas or the Missouri side, I'm licensed on both, please give me a call. My phone number is 626-226-6611. You can also text me. You can also send me an email. Either way, I will get back to you if you're looking for a home in the Kansas City area in 2023. One of the things that you need to know is that you, as a consumer, hire your team. Nobody else does it for you. You get to choose. And just because you choose a realtor doesn't mean you have to choose the lender that realtor normally works with, or vice versa. Just because you choose a lender doesn't mean you have to use a realtor that lender works with. Just because I, as a realtor, suggest to you an inspection company doesn't mean that you have to use them. You can go look up their reviews. You can go talk to them. You can go interview them. If you have an inspector, if your uncle's an inspector in the KC metro area, we can certainly use your uncle as well. You don't have to use anybody that you don't want to use. So how do you choose? You may be wondering, hey, there's so many options out there. How do you choose? So I've come up with a couple criteria that everybody on your team, or attributes that they need to have. Number one is that everybody on your team needs to be an excellent communicator. Everybody on your team needs to be an excellent communicator. Can you get a hold of them in a reasonable time frame? If you text them, if you call them, will they pick up? And if they don't pick up because maybe they're with another client, or maybe they're doing something else, or maybe with their family, do they call you back in a reasonable time frame? And then when they do, are they clear in their communication? And that leads to the second thing is everybody needs to be a great teacher. Everybody on your team needs to be a great teacher. So are they good at communicating these difficult, complex concepts to you so that you understand it? So if this is your first time buying a home, then you're gonna need to be taught how everything works. You probably don't know how all of these things work. There's a whole bunch of moving pieces that you have to understand. One of the things I wanna say, so please listen carefully, is that it is in your best interest as the consumer to understand how everything works. Now, you don't have to understand them to the level of the professionals that you hire, but the more that you understand, and the more that you understand everything, the easier it's going to be the second or third time that you do this. Or the more that you understand everything, the easier it's gonna be for you when something happens along the way, because this is your biggest purchase, right? This is your biggest investment and hopefully a great vessel for building your wealth. So you're gonna wanna understand everything that goes into this process. Don't just assume. Have your professionals communicate this to you in a clear way so that you understand it and so that you're comfortable with the process. So the third thing that I have is everybody on your team should be an empathetic counselor. An empathetic counselor. If you're watching, can you raise your hand if you like moving? Do you enjoy the moving process? Is it a fun process, right? I don't think anybody enjoys the moving process. And I'm not talking about the moving like, ooh, you know, I'm gonna go explore a new city or something like that. I'm talking about the actual process of packing up all your belongings in a whole bunch of boxes, getting all your friends to shove them in a U-Haul, and then driving and then unloading them and living out of boxes for a week or a month or something like that. Does anybody like that? Does anybody like, I love that process? I don't think anybody does. Moving is one of the most stressful times for you and your family. If you have kids, they're gonna be completely disrupted. Their sleep is going to be all off kilter, and they can sense that, hey, you know, our time at this, if you're renting right now, our time at this place is coming to an end and there's gonna be change. So change is hard, moving is hard, all of those things are extremely hard. You don't like that, right? It's a stressful time. So you're gonna need people on your team that understand your goals. Remember, going back to that first video about your motivation, they understand your motivation, but they will also be extremely empathetic to you. They will understand your concerns. They will be an ear to listen when you have to vent and all these crazy things that could happen during the home buying process. So you not only want a team that understands your goals, but a team that will listen to you. So let me tell you something that isn't a secret, but you should know this, right? Your realtor and your lender, we don't get paid until you close on the home, okay? We don't get paid until you close on the home. And that means that closing is when you show up to the title company and you bring that check to buy that house, okay? Whether it's the down payment or if you're buying cash, you bring that check to buy that house, okay? We don't get paid until that happens. So if the sale doesn't go through, then guess what? Then we don't get paid for the work that we did, showing you houses, doing all these things for your loan, all that stuff. The realtor and lender, they don't get paid on that. So that means that a lot of realtors are interested in getting you the house, right? Because they have some interest in that too. There are also some realtors that may be more interested in getting paid than interested in understanding your motivations. So you want somebody who clearly understands your motivations, who clearly understands why you want to move to that house, and isn't gonna work for their best interest to the cost of your best interests. You don't want somebody who is going to make a already stressful situation even more stressful. The questions that you might want to ask: if you choose a realtor, do you feel rushed when you're looking at homes with your realtor? Are they patient with you? Are they a good teacher? Are they willing to answer questions more than one time? If you're feeling rushed, or if you're feeling pressure from your realtor, or if they're glossing over your concerns, that may be a red flag, okay? So that's what you're gonna wanna look for. So if you've kind of targeted people to interview to be on your team, then what you should do next is you should meet with each member of your team, okay? Meet with each member of your team. So it doesn't matter in which order you meet your team and you sit down and interview them, but you're gonna wanna have a conversation with each of the people that you potentially could choose. Again, if you're looking for a realtor, I'm a local realtor here in Kansas City, please give me a call. My phone number is 626-226-6611. Again, I produce these videos because I think that they're helpful for the consumer to know everything about the process. And if you hire me, then you can expect the same type of service, the same patient service, and the same teaching-based service that you see on this video. When you meet with your realtor, then you should have a pretty clear idea of what you're looking for. Remember, if you haven't yet, then go click on the first video and answer all of those questions and think through all of those issues that I raise in terms of buying a home in the Kansas City Metro in 2023, right? Go through your motivation, go through all of those things. You want to help your realtor understand your situation. You want to help them understand your motivation. And one of the things that I always tell my clients is that your motivation, whatever motivates you is what motivates me. I'm hired to work as a fiduciary to represent you, and so your interests in terms of getting your child into a certain school district, or in terms of getting closer to your family, that becomes my motivation. Or in terms of getting a place where you can build your dream house, that becomes my motivation too. But the more clearly you can communicate that to me, the more clearly I can execute that plan or help you execute that plan for you. A couple things that you may want to be ready to answer to is time frame. Is your lease running out and you need to be a certain place by a certain time? Location. You don't want to be driving all over the KC Metro, so you need to be focused on the location. And if you haven't yet, again, go back to that first video, watch that, answer those questions. Location. The type of house. These are the things that are less important than the time frame and the location, but the type of house. What kind of house do you like around the metro? Are you in a situation where you don't want to go upstairs because you want everything on a single story? Are you in a situation where you really need a basement because you're concerned about tornadoes? All of those things they would concern the type of house that you're going to want to be looking for. Do you need acreage? Do you need a huge lot because you want some privacy? Do you want to hunt on your land? All of these things are questions that you're going to need to have answered. Are you open to a fixer-upper? Are you wanting something that you can immediately move into and probably not have to fix for a long time? Or are you open to something that's in a little bit rougher shape now, but then in the future, if you fix it up, it could be really nice? Are you open to those things? What components of the house concern you? Are you concerned about the roof and the HVAC system and the foundation? And those types of things we're going to explain in future videos. So if you keep watching, I'm going to explain what all of those things are and how to look at them. If you don't know, if that's all gibberish to you, then don't worry. Just stick with me and we'll get to it. Okay. So, but the key thing, again, going back to it, is to help me as your realtor understand your motivation, because your motivation, again, is my motivation. And the reason why it's so important is it helps so much with clarity. Because, for example, you tell me that if you come to me and you say, hey, Jaylenn, I'd love to have you as a realtor. I say, wonderful. Okay, why do you want to move? Where do you want to move to? And you say, I want to move to the Blue Valley School District. I want my children in the Blue Valley School District. Okay, wonderful. So we start searching for homes in the Blue Valley School District, and all of a sudden you say, I want to go look at homes in Olathe. Well, I would say initially you had told me your motivation was to do this thing. Either you're changing your motivation, which is fine. It's your motivation. You can change it if you want to. Or you're either getting desperate or you're getting confused. What you need someone to do is to ask you the question. What is it? Are you changing your motivation? If so, why? Have you thought about what this would mean for these other components of buying a house that you told me were important to you? All of these things I would ask you if all of a sudden you were looking for houses in a completely different school district. Somebody who knows your motivation can counsel you. What's changing your motivation? Why are things different all of a sudden? And then most likely what's going to happen is the realtor that you choose will set you up on a search, and it'll give you a portal to where homes are listed called the Multiple Listing Service, or the MLS. It gives you access to homes as they hit the market, and sometimes before they hit the market. And if you're looking at Zillow and realtor.com, those sources will draw from the MLS, but typically it'll hit the MLS first, and then Zillow will be updated. Now, this isn't to say that you shouldn't look on Zillow, that you shouldn't look on realtor.com. Typically, the search that your realtor sets up is going to be your first source, and then if it's not broad enough and you're not seeing enough homes there, then go ahead and look on Zillow. But I would also call your realtor and say, hey, is it just because our parameters are too small? Is it because there's not enough homes on the market? I don't know, depending on when you're buying. Those two things may be a factor in 2023. The second meeting that you need to have is with your lender. Now again, if you have cash, if you have enough money to pay for your home entirely in cash, then you don't need a lender. You can go ahead and just meet with the realtor, start looking for houses, and then go ahead and put in offers. So you can skip to the end of this video. But most people don't necessarily have enough cash to buy a house, at least, and so they need a lender. With your lender, you're trying to get clear on your budget. You're trying to get clear on your budget. How much monthly payment can you afford? And again, if you don't know that, then go back to that first video and answer those questions, and you'll have an idea of how much monthly payment you can afford. Another question that your lender will ask you is, will your job qualify you for a house? And again, I'll let the lender kind of go into more detail, but if you only earn $500 a month or something like that, you're probably not going to be able to qualify for a house, especially if the payments for that house are going to be $1,000 a month. I mean, that's simple math. I'm not gonna get too deep into that, but again, I've linked 2 lenders that I work with below, and if you want to reach out to either one of them, they're both fantastic at answering all of these questions. Do you have enough saved to buy a house? A lot of people will come to me and say, how much do I need to buy a house? Well, it depends on the house that you buy, and it depends on another thing called closing costs. Closing costs are super important, and you need to understand what closing costs are, because a lot of times people will come to me and say, okay, I know I have 5% down to put down on a house. Let's just say it's a $100,000 house. I have $5,000, can I buy the house? Well, you will probably need more than $5,000 if you want to put 5% down, because 5% down is your down payment, but then at closing, you're gonna have what's called closing costs. And all of those things, I'm gonna again, reach out to the lenders if you want more information about closing costs, but all of that is the lender's commission, the taxes, the insurance, paying the lender, paying the title company, all of that is included in closing costs, and that's added cost. So if you said, hey, I have $5,000 to buy a $100,000 home, I would probably say you want to talk to a lender, but you may not have enough to factor in for closing costs. Now, there's ways that we can negotiate around that, so continue watching. If you want to find out about closing costs and negotiations, that's going to be a later video. But these are all the costs that you need to consider before you go shopping. So you don't want to go out there and you don't want to decide, hey, I'm ready to buy a house because I have this amount of money, and then you find out it's actually not going to work. Okay, you need to get clear on your budget now. So the lender is also going to go through all your loan options, and there's a whole bunch of different types of loans that you can get. Typically there are 4 main types of loans. There's an FHA loan, there's a VA loan, there's a USDA loan, and there's a conventional loan. Now there are more than that, but those are typically the 4 types of loans that you can get, and the lender will go through all your loan options and the pros and cons of each. And I'll talk about that later in the video, in a different video as well. So after you submit all those things to your lender, after you submit your pay stubs, you'll need to run a credit check. He'll need to look at your assets and how much you have saved. If you can qualify to purchase a home in Kansas City, then your lender will give you what's called a pre-qualification letter or a pre-approval letter. And that will be a letter from the lender to the potential seller of the house that you're looking to buy, saying that you, as a buyer, can buy a home that is up to X amount of money. So your lender will work with you saying, if you want to keep your budget in this amount, then you need to buy a home for less than $300,000 or less than $150,000. And your lender will give you a pre-approval letter that says that you, Mr. Buyer or Mrs. Buyer, or whoever's watching this right now, that you as a buyer can buy a house for up to that amount. And that is the ticket that you can have. That is basically your ticket to start looking for homes and start making offers. If you don't meet with the lender before, then you're just going to be looking at homes without any real way of financing that home. Now, you imagine this: if you were selling a home and you decided to let people into your home and potential buyers into your home to see your home, how would you feel if the buyers that came through that interrupted your Tuesday evening dinner all of a sudden said, hey, yeah, it's a great house, but actually I don't even know if I can buy your house, right? You'd kind of be pretty upset, because you'd say, well, what's the point in me showing you the house then, right? Because you don't even know if you can buy it. And that's one of the things that you're gonna need to do before. That's why you want a pre-approval letter before you start looking for homes, because the sellers are gonna wanna know, can you buy this house? And it'll also give you a budget. Because you're gonna wanna know how much it's gonna cost to buy that home. If you've already met with your realtor and lender and you already have them, then keep watching for the next video in terms of finding the actual home.